There are places where the sea remembers things we have forgotten, where the wind carries voices that were never spoken aloud, where light bends in ways that cannot be explained by science alone. In the winter of 1911, on a nameless rock 60 miles from the nearest shore, sailors began reporting something impossible, a lighthouse that kept two lights. One blazed bright and constant, as all lighthouse flames must. The other, softer and dimmer, appeared only when storms clawed at the iron tower, guiding ships through passages no chart had ever mapped. The man who tended that lighthouse never saw the second light, but he knew it was there. The North Atlantic has always been a graveyard of stone and water. In the early 20th century, before radio beacons and satellite navigation, the difference between life and death for sailors often came down to a single point of light piercing through fog and spray. Harrowick Island rose from those dark waters like a broken tooth, barely 3 acres of granite and scrub grass, surrounded by reefs that had claimed dozens of vessels over the centuries. The lighthouse built there in 1887 was a necessity born of tragedy. After the merchant ship Caroline broke apart on Harrowick's eastern shoals, killing all 43 souls aboard, the Maritime Authority commissioned a tower. It was not a grand lighthouse. No elegant spiral of white-painted stone. Harrowick Light was iron and function, a cylindrical tower 90 feet tall, painted black to absorb what little warmth the sun offered. Inside, a cast-iron staircase wound upward through 5 levels, storage below, living quarters in the middle, and at the top, the lantern room with its Fresnel lens, a masterpiece of glass and brass that could throw light 15 miles across open water. To be a lighthouse keeper in those years was to choose a particular kind of solitude. The work was simple but unforgiving. Trim the wick, clean the lens, wind the clockwork mechanism that rotated the light, keep the log, watch the horizon, repeat, day after day, storm after calm after storm. Most men lasted 2 seasons before requesting transfer. Elias Thorn lasted 7 years. We know surprisingly little about Elias Thorn before he arrived at Harrowick in 1904. Maritime records list him as 31 years old, unmarried, formerly a shipwright in Portsmouth. His application to the lighthouse service described him as competent with tools, comfortable with isolation, no family obligations. Those who met him during his annual supply visits remembered a quiet man with calloused hands and gray eyes that seemed perpetually focused on some distant point. His journals, discovered after his disappearance, reveal something more. Not a hermit fleeing humanity, but a man who had found an unexpected peace in the rhythm of his work. He wrote with careful precision, noting weather patterns, ship sightings, and migrating birds. He wrote about loneliness, yes, but not as suffering, more as a kind of clarity. Out here, he noted in 1907, a man hears his own thoughts with such volume that he must eventually make peace with them. After a time, they become companions rather than tormentors. For 7 years, Elias Thorn kept Harrowick Light burning without incident. His logs were models of precision. His lens always gleamed. And then, in the autumn of 1910, the entries began to change. On October 14, 1910, Elias wrote, "Woke at dawn to find the wick trimmed and the lens polished to perfection. I distinctly remember falling asleep before completing these tasks last night. Perhaps I finished them in a fog of tiredness I cannot now recall." On December 29th, footprints in the frost on the exterior platform, leading from the door to the railing and back. My boots were dry and by the stove all night. I was alone on this island. I remain alone on this island. The entries grew more frequent through early 1911. tasks completed that he had not done, evidence of presence where no one could have been. And always, Elias approaching each occurrence with scientific skepticism. On February 17th, 1911, I have taken to marking the fuel level in the lamp reservoir before sleeping. 3 times now I have found it lower than my mark by morning, as though someone burned the lamp for several hours through the night. I begin to wonder if isolation has affected my perception more than I realized. But other evidence emerged that could not be dismissed. The merchant vessel Sterling Dawn recorded in its log, observed lighthouse beam at 0200 hours, then again at 0330 hours after we had passed beyond its range. Second sighting appeared dimmer, almost golden in color, attributed to atmospheric distortion, though crew insists they saw 2 distinct lights. The fishing boat Mercy, caught in fog, reported, heard humming carried on the wind. Not mechanical, almost like a human voice, wordless, steady, followed the sound and the light to safe passage east of the reefs. Elias recorded none of this. He could not have known. He only noted, with increasing frequency, the small impossibilities that filled his days. The lamp was lit before I reached the lantern room this evening. I know I did not light it. Humming in the walls again. It makes the glass vibrate. Melodic, somehow. Almost comforting. Someone is helping me keep this light. I should be afraid. I am not. On the night of November 28th, 1911, the worst storm in a decade descended on those waters. The schooner Endeavour found itself driven off course, pushed steadily toward the reef-snarled coast near Harrowick. Captain Matthias Cole later testified, "We were lost. Dead men waiting for the rocks to claim us. And then we saw the lights." Plural. The first was Harrowick. Bright, steady, rotating as it should. But then a second light appeared. Dimmer, golden, like a lantern flame. It swept ahead of us, illuminating a passage between the reefs we didn't know existed. We followed it. Both lights, one bright, one soft, like a mother and child guiding us home. The Endeavour navigated safely past Harrowick. Captain Cole sent a telegram praising the extraordinary vigilance of the keeper. But Elias Thorn's journal entry for that night was brief. Storm of unusual violence. Did not light the lamp tonight. Fuel reserves low and wind too fierce. Sheltered below. Prayed the ships would find other guidance. The next morning, a supply ship found Elias alive and well. They also found the lamp burning, fuel nearly exhausted, the lens perfectly clean. The lantern room door was latched from the inside, though Elias swore he'd bolted it from below. And in the frost on the exterior platform, 2 sets of boot prints. One matched Elias's boots. The other was larger, heavier. When asked about the second light, Elias looked confused. "I lit no light," he said quietly. "Someone kept watch while I dreamed," he added, almost to himself. "Someone always keeps watch." The Maritime Authority considered removing Elias immediately, but he refused to leave mid-season. He remained on the island for 1 more week. His final journal entries are haunting. December 4th, 1911. The second light is visible to me now, not with my eyes, but with something else. A warmth in the air where it passes. I understand now that I have not been alone here. December 5th, 1911. It speaks, though not in words. In the hum of the wind through the tower. It is not frightening. It is patient. It has been keeping this light longer than there has been a lighthouse here. His final entry on December 6th. Tonight, the second light is brighter. I think it is calling me up. I think my watch is ending. If whoever finds this wonders where I have gone, tell them I went to join the other keepers. The true keepers. The ones who never leave their post. The light will not go out. It never has. It never will. On December 7th, the relief keeper arrived. He found the lighthouse in perfect order. The door latched from the inside. Elias Thorn's coat hung on its hook. His boots stood by the stove. A cup of tea sat on the table, still faintly warm. The only thing unusual was in the lantern room. Someone had polished the Fresnel lens to an impossible shine, and carved into the frost on the interior glass, as if written by a fingertip from the outside, were 5 words: "Thank you for your service." Harrowick Lighthouse was automated in 1954 and decommissioned in 1971. The tower still stands, a silent monument. But sailors still report anomalies near the island. A golden light during storms. A humming carried on the wind. A warmth in the air that seems to guide ships away from danger. A maritime historian who visited in 2003 recorded hearing a wordless, peaceful melody in the tower, and noted the brass railing in the lantern room was warm to the touch. She felt no fear, only the distinct impression that she was not alone, and that whoever shared the space with her was deeply content. Elias Thorn's journals were published, but never widely read. They tell the story of a man who discovered something fundamental about duty, presence, and the strange mercy of places that outlast human memory. Harrowick Island is still marked on nautical charts, a silhouette against gray skies. The light is gone, but sailors, even now, will sometimes report a second beam in heavy weather, dim and golden, sweeping across the waves as if searching for ships in need of guidance. As if somewhere, in a place beyond logs and records, the watch continues. As if some lights, once lit, refuse to ever go out. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please follow for more mysteries from the edges of the map.